Um, well, thank you. We're meeting today just because there was some input that we wanted to get on the Mitchell Field boat launch project. And so I'll share my screen here and talk through this a little bit. I suspect that most in this meeting are aware of
Can you turn
the
that
boat
up a
launch
bit?
project. Are you able to see my screen at this point? You should see the plan for the boat launch.
No, it's way down in the corner.
Yeah, Peter, can you make that full screen? Or-
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. So I won't speak in a lot of detail about the boat launch, but the town is proposing a boat launch to be installed at Mitchell Field. It would be installed on the north side of the existing causeway. The project involves the construction of the new boat launch, construction of an expanded upland parking area for truck and trailer parking, and access to the boat launch would utilize the gravel road that was constructed during the pier demolition project, crossing through the meadow to the boat launch. The project has been in the works for quite a few years, and we are working toward completion of final design so that the project can go out to bid. The permits or applications have been filed for state and federal permits for the project from DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers, and those are in process. We've also filed an application with the town, a planning board application, and presented to the planning board last Wednesday, and the project was conditionally approved. One of the conditions was that GEI would work with the planner, with Mark, who unfortunately is not here today, but to identify potential changes that could be made in the design to improve access for larger commercial haulers. There was a concern expressed during the planning board workshop that particularly some of the larger commercial haulers may not be able to easily use the facility. I will say this design has been in the works since, for well over 10 years. During the design team consulted with staff from Dolphin Marina and from Great Island Boatyard to get a sense of what the requirements were for access to this facility. But boats are getting larger, rigs are getting larger, and you do want to make sure that we provide a design that is functional for modern commercial haulers here in town that might use this facility. So jump ahead here and show. So this is a close-up of the boat launch approach on the causeway. There will be a new turnaround area and a 20-foot wide boat launch. And when this project was designed, the design parameter was to use a 60-foot turning radius for the vehicle, or 60-foot diameter, 30-foot radius for the vehicle turning around at the head of the boat launch. That's as shown in this graphic here, which shows the standard truck trailer turning movement for a recreational launch, recreational boater. So that was the design parameter that was used, and during the discussion with the planning board last week and in some follow-up correspondence with one local hauler, it was indicated that a 70-foot diameter would be preferable in order for that for him to be able to launch at this facility. So you can see here on the plan I've overlaid what that looks like. We have our 60-foot circle that this was designed for, and our 70-foot diameter, which is what was requested by the hauler who works out of Dolphin Marina. We did have some further discussions with him just today, actually. And during that, he had indicated that 65 feet would be doable, and that he would be able to work with what we can do. So we would like to try to accommodate as easy of use by local commercial haulers as possible. But really, I think the question that we wanted to discuss right now is just getting the board's feedback on whether we should proceed with the design as is, as we've been designing it for multiple years, or whether we really want to make some modifications to the design to ensure that it is readily available and usable by the range of commercial haulers that might be working in town. In conversations with the hauler that I had mentioned earlier, he had put out some different ideas, like if we really can't turn easily here, we could back down the entire causeway. That's possible, but it's not really something we want to promote. The question comes down to, are we going to look at making some modifications to the design to better accommodate the larger haulers, or keep this as is, which might result in some limitations on commercial haulers on the larger side, but would still allow for recreational use and small to medium-sized commercial haulers. We have looked at an option to allow for expanding the turning area, and so the modifications that would be required are not they're not overly substantial. We think that they can be done within the existing permits, so we wouldn't have to go back to DEP and the Army Corps to modify those permits. I'll share a conceptual plan here, so we would still need to work out the details of this, but to share what we're thinking would be possible here, and just to flip back and forth between here's the existing design, and we have our access road coming in here. Hopefully you can see my cursor, but on the south side, the access road's coming in here. And then in the proposed design, there's a 4-foot wide pedestrian sidewalk that runs along the access road. And there's a curb between the access road and the sidewalk. So there would be a grade separation between that sidewalk and the access road. So in order to increase the turning area, we would be proposing to eliminate a section of the curbing and bring that pedestrian sidewalk down to the same grade as the access road. And rather than having a separated sidewalk, it would be just painted striping on the pavement. What that would do is it would allow for the truck to encroach into that area when a larger truck is using the facility and needs the additional space to make its turning movement to access the launch. In order to accommodate the full 70-foot circle that was requested, we would actually, in addition to utilizing the entire 4-foot sidewalk, we would end up having to increase the width of pavement a small amount, 3 to 4 additional feet, so that we could incorporate area to allow that turn to happen. And then we really need to look at this a little more closely, but we may need to shift some of these parking spaces. There's 3 parking spaces out on the causeway, which may need to be shifted a little bit further down the causeway to provide clearance for the truck to turn. And on the north side, we would be looking to slightly narrow the stone curb that from the edge. In the current design, there's a 5-foot wide stone buffer along the entire edge of the boat ramp, and we would be narrowing that down and to 2 feet, and then providing a guardrail. And by making those modifications, we could incorporate the entire 70-foot circle. So we think that these can be done with relatively minor impact to the project. And we're just at a decision point where the question is, do we open up the design to some additional modifications while we're late in the final design process in order to make sure that we can best accommodate the largest local commercial haulers, or is the town comfortable with sticking with the design as it is currently, which may result in some limitations on some of the larger haulers. So that's really the question that has come up and that I'd like input on so that we know how to proceed with final design. I'm happy to elaborate more, but I think at this point I could just turn it back for discussion, and I can respond to any questions.
Well, probably the first question, we have a commercial boat hauler here in the room. Would the 70-foot radius do it for you? So what are you saying, Dan, the 7-foot radius wouldn't require any more permitting, correct?
So 70-foot diameter.
Diameter, yeah.
This all falls within the existing project scope, so it wouldn't require changes on the DEP and Army Corps side. One thing we will need to look at, we have our DEP stormwater permit, and that required us to stay under a certain amount of impervious area on the site. We were very close to the limit with that, and this change would create some new impervious area. So what we'll need to do in order to not impact that permit is we'll need to find somewhere else that we can reduce impervious area. And I'm not sure where that would be yet. It may need to be on some of
The area in the
we
center
would
there,
need to look into that.
the area in the center that's hash marked, is that pavement?
That was also going to be pavement with painted striping on it.
Maybe you could reduce some of that, some of the pavement in that area.
That's a good point, yeah.
And that would be the same grade, the center area, it's the same grade as the rest of it, correct?
Correct.
Topographically, you couldn't tell.
Don Misko, Mitchfield Stewart. The 3 parking areas, Dan, are they pavement or permeable surface?
So those are paved in the current design, but it's possible that they don't need to be. That's something we could look at.
Yeah, I would say that'd be the first place to look to get us some wiggle room.
Yeah.
Well, we've said all along that we wanted to be able to launch anything that you can haul over the road, so, I mean, that's, we have to compromise. That looks like a good compromise. I mean, we can't spend a lot of time redrawing this thing.
No.
That, we've got to get going on it.
Any thoughts out there?
Amy Heibel, Planning Board. My only thought about this from the town's point of view, and I haven't talked to anybody, I have no research on it, but it's just insurance purposes. And I'm a little worried from the town's point of view that if you're combining pedestrian access at the end of that pier, and I can see kids walking down there with parents, and having a large boat turnaround, you might really need to have separation between the two. And I don't want to throw a wrench in this whole thing, but I just think the town should make sure that it's covered and protected itself so that you're not creating a conflict of use here.
I think every boat ramp in town has got the same problems as people, you know, you take Garrison Cove, you got Miracle Cove, there's, you know, people milling about everywhere, and commercial haulers are used to waiting. Same with Lookout. You know, I think it'd be the same situation down there. Yeah.
Spike Highwell, Mitchellfield Chair. The town of Brunswick has a boat launch, I mean, and I use that one at Mere Point, and that one has lots of free space for people to wander around. So I think that part of it can be dealt with. You've always got people walking down, and there are double launching lanes there, so it can get a little wacky sometimes. My little concern is that with the pedestrian walkway being at the same grade, that everybody will start to use it as a wide swing. And I don't know how we avoid that, Dan, but yeah, that's just what comes to mind. If we take away the curb, then we've got people will swing wide if they've got a chance to swing wide. That's the thing with trailers, you know.
So this,
Can I-
Dan, raises the question, is it possible for some of that curb to stay with the exception of the area you have within the circle?
Yeah, so I guess that's something that we can look at if this is the direction that we're moving. I think there's a few different ideas that we could utilize. So our first thought on this was that it would be painted, which is a visual, you know, not barrier, but there's a difference of appearance, but understood that people may end up utilizing that whenever they can. We could do something like putting a texture in the surface by changing the material on the surface. The other is to actually put in a barrier, like several removable bollards that the Mitchellfield steward would have access to, so they could be removed if someone needs that space, but they would be in place otherwise. Some form of movable barrier. We don't want it to be too difficult to work with, but if there was a barrier there so that not every person that was using this facility would drive over the pedestrian way, that could be one way to manage it.
Well, I
And
think
we
the
can
barrier would have to
certainly
be,
look at-
the barrier would have to be removable by anyone who's going to use it, not just the steward, but he's not always there. But I like the change of texture. I like that idea.
And we can certainly look at just the amount of curb that's removed, minimizing that to the greatest extent possible while allowing the turning movement to happen.
Mose Price with the Mitchellfield Committee, and just have a question for Dan. Does the design we're looking at now with that 70-foot blue radius already include the reduced size of the border on the north side?
It does, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we were originally working with a 60-foot diameter, so we needed to find 10 additional feet to get to 70 feet. So that's what this design shows. That's, I think if we can make that work, that's ideal. Again, we did have a conversation with one local hauler earlier today who indicated that at his facility, he turns in a 65-foot diameter circle. So if we can't quite get 70, then it should still be usable. But I think if there's a practical way to get there, it would be nice to make it as functional as possible.
Well, so do you see any increased cost as far as the bid that went out? This would be a slight addition, I would assume, but it doesn't look drastic.
No, I mean, there is a slight modification, but I think in the scale of this project, the small amount of additional pavement is really pretty insignificant. insulate, I mean, we're eliminating some curbs, so I mean, there's a little bit of savings there. We haven't tried to put numbers to any cost difference yet, but I wouldn't see this as a change where cost is the primary driver in the decision. I think it's really a matter of just functionally, is this a change that's desirable to the town, that we should consider it in final design.
Okay. Anything? Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in? You know, this is down at Potts Harbor, right?
John Lloyd, Potts Harbor. No, so my question is this combined with a future plan to build a wharf there that meets commercial standards?
Yes.
This complements that, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Down the road, as they were.
I'm Billy Saxton. The thing that makes this ramp valuable is it will be an all-tide ramp. Most boat ramps in town are 4-hour ramps, 3-hour ramp, 4 to 6-hour ramps. So 2 or 3 hours either side of the tide. So this one, in storms, a boat sinking in the middle of the night, you know, it needs to be accessible 24 hours a day. I think that's part of the plan. Removing posts is probably not ideal. And as you add weight on these trailers, it puts a tremendous amount of strain on the suspension, on the tires. So we always try to go as wide as we can. So make it as big as you can. We may even, I know this is not ideal, but if we had a really heavy boat, a 50,000-pound boat, we might opt to back down.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, as you add weight, it could damage the pavement or, you know, other things, our equipment. So as the weight goes up, the harder it gets.
Yeah.
But, and we're always really careful about people. We always have staff and, you know, people are,
Yeah, you would always have the back down option. That would be, you know.
yeah, I don't think it's ideal, but.
Right, absolutely.
But we do it at all of the ramps. I mean, Bethel Point ramp we use all the time. We back down that road. There's cars and people and
Right.
porta potties and all that type of stuff in the way.
Kayaks.
But make it as big as you can.
Yep.
I would think would make sense. I mean, it would be,
I think
know.
that's it.
yeah. Yeah.
So you're looking for a nod from us, Dan?
I'm looking for whether or not we're going to get a nod from you. You going to take a vote on this?
I think you probably should. if
Yes.
you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you take a vote, I would just ask administratively that a copy of this meeting and the minutes be put into the planning file so that future folks that go and look down the road to see that the condition of approval that the planning board put on this is in that file and is available and right there. So there's no question that this thing met the condition of approval.
You got it, kid. You got it.
Thank you.
So make a motion that we approve the 70-foot diameter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
That was easy.
There you go. That easy.
All right. And any updates on the Potts Harbor float? Did I hear tomorrow? The floats might go in tomorrow?
The
The
floats?
rumor that the floats might go in there tomorrow? Oh, they're there? No?
You need some stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Bring up or something.
We still haven't figured out where the stairs are going exactly, have we? We had that discussion that day, and there were three discussions, 3 different spots. Oh.
Do we need to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, at this point, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Okay.